What's up, y'all? Welcome back. My name's Tobias, and this show is called Mindflower, where I bring you the astrological insights that I'm feeling for today. Uranus coming into Gemini. We did see this last spring, then it retrograded back into Taurus, and now it's returning to Gemini, and this time it's here to stay. Last time we saw this would have been the early 40s, right? 41, 42, 43. This is when Uranus was last coming into Gemini. I want to talk about some of the parallels that I see with that time. And then, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot that's happened, right? Since my last horoscope, we've had all this new Aries energy come in. I've been beating that drum for a while. And now we're done with Pisces, right? And today we're done with Uranus and Taurus, right? I mean, we're not fully done with Pisces. We're never done with Pisces, but we're done with outer planets in Pisces. We're done with major Pisces transits until I guess Jupiter will be the next to come into Pisces, and that won't happen, for like another 9 years, right? And the North Node's getting ready to leave Pisces. So other than your like yearly Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars every couple of years, right? We're not going to be seeing that much Pisces energy, until Pluto finishes in Aquarius or until Jupiter comes in there. That'll be 9 years for Jupiter and like almost like probably 16 for Pluto coming into Pisces. So right now, everything's jammed up other than Pluto in Aquarius and Jupiter in Cancer. Saturn, Mars, Neptune, all in Aries with Mercury and Chiron, right? The sun's in Taurus today, right? Squaring at 5 degrees Taurus, squaring that squaring that Pluto. A little bit rusty, yeah, squaring that Pluto in Aquarius. And this is, of course, the last sun in Taurus squaring Pluto and Aquarius that we're going to have with Uranus and Taurus. So, there's something there as well that's highlighting the Uranus energy that we've been learning about in Taurus, the way we've been learning about the Taurus energy through Uranus, like that whole dynamic, right? And that connection that has to the lessons of Pluto and Aquarius, right? So I want to get into that some. And then yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the first quadrant a lot, right? Because we're stacked up, between Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. And yeah, I mean, the moon's in Leo, right? And it's, that's the first quarter square from the sun. And we're moving towards the first full moon in Scorpio, right? It's going to be in a week from now, but this will be the first time that we've seen a full moon in Scorpio that's not opposing Uranus since 2018 and before, right? So let's see, where do I want to start with all that? Let's first start with, I've spent a lot of time on these horoscopes talking about the moon card, talking about the Pisces energy, talking about the world that we're leaving behind. And, that is now the world that we've left behind, right? And for so long, we were in this liminal space, in this threshold zone. We were passing through the portal. We were in the wormhole. And it's so important, right? I mean, there's the reason why there's all these sayings like, yeah, you got to sprint through the finish and like finish strong, right? And like closing a cycle, closing a deal, closing anything, finishing a project, finishing a painting. I mean, it's the hardest part, that last 10%, that last little bit to be able to actually deliver and, and enter a new world with that cycle in the past closed and everything that it has brought to us, right? Because each cycle gives birth to like a new energy, right? Like if it's a project and the cycle of the life cycle of anything results in a culmination of some sort of outcome, right? And the cycle that we had been in of all this water energy, of all this earth energy, particularly because it's Pisces, which is the archetype of endings, and particularly because the Saturn and Neptune conjunction took place on the equinox point, right? We are closing out. We have closed out a massive chapter, right? And that's as individuals and as a collective and as a solar system, as a cosmos, like whatever, right? And so So for so long, I've been beating that drum of like, yo, all the things that we needed to be attending to and all the things that we needed to understand in order to finish and close that cycle. And now it's done. It's over. It's in the past. We're in the new world now. We're in the new energy. And it's, especially after today, right? And we had a sneak preview of it last spring, and then all the retrogrades of Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus, all three of those planets crossed into their new signs, retrograded back to the place they'd been for years and years. And now they've re-entered. And so when you think about the beginning of a cycle, and that's the Aries energy, and Aries has to do with identity. So when you begin your life, right, there's like, sorry to say, you don't have control over this stuff. You come in with it, right? You had control over it as like a cosmic being, and you chose, hey, this is the karma that I have. This is the path I'm signing up for. But when you arrive out of the womb, you're totally helpless. You're not even really fully conscious. You're just like a little tiny organism. And in that moment, boom, you have your gender, like you're born biologically what you are, genetically, physically. It is what it is. That's why Aries rules these kinds of distinctions of like, yo, you come out, you get your name, your gender, your family, the language that you're going to speak, all this stuff immediately assigned to you. You have no control over it. You're born into it. You're conditioned to it. And it kind of just is what it is. Like, that's the hand that you're dealt, and you go from there, right? And so you come out of the womb and you take your first breath and you begin your journey. Now, at the beginning of the journey, there's no concept of victory. There's no plan. There's no goal, right? And sure, Aries will tell you they love to win, but they don't care about winning. They care about doing, right? And if you go look on YouTube videos of like the ram and the way they just bam, they just bash their head into stuff. Like, oh, there's a problem, I'm just gonna like smash my face into it. Like, oh, it's not a problem, I'm gonna smash my face into it. Like, oh, we have a disagreement, we're friends, we're enemies, doesn't matter. Like, I'm just gonna boom, smash into this thing. And that's the energy of Aries. It's just the go. It's just, you have what you have, you are what you are, and you're making moves. You're going, it's pure instinct. It's pure instinct. And it's a struggle. It's a battle, because you don't have a plan. You don't have anything other than like what you were born with and what what comprises ultimately your identity, what you showed up here with, which is the genetics that you have, your like physiological composition. I mean, like it's pretty cut and dry, right? You have what you have, you are what you are, your journey begins there. And there's a whole 12-stage cycle that's going to unfold. And you're going to gather up all those pieces and figure out all these different questions along the way. But at the beginning, all you are is a spark. All you are is a breath and a heartbeat. That's it. There's no memories. Tabula rasa, right? Sure, you bring in all your karmic conditioning, so on and so forth. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, like as a baby, first breath, you got a heartbeat, somebody gave you a name, that's it. You got your time of birth, right? You got your chart. And that is your identity, right? It's that snapshot of the current state of the system at the moment of your entry. Of like, and I mean, in physics, right? I mean, that's the whole part, is if you know all the conditions of the system, you can predict how it's going to evolve. And so that's what the birth chart is. That's your identity. That's your composition. That's your genetics, right? That's who you are. That's what you're working with. And then you get to Taurus. You start to have like physical awareness of like a body and like motor skills and motor functions. Taurus is the talents and skills and abilities that you have within you, that are innate within you, right? It's opposite of Scorpio. Taurus and Scorpio, it's all about survival. Aries and Libra, ultimately, it's all about identity, right? the counterpoint, right? Because of like the Aries identity is like you can't even really know who you are until you have that mirror. That's how Libra has to do with identity. But with Taurus, it's about what are my needs, what's going on with my body, how do I move my legs, how do I do fine motor skills, and and how am I gonna survive in this world, and again, what talents, skills, and abilities do I have? Was I born with? Can I cultivate, to be able to manifest the means of survival and the means, in a sense, the means of production, right? Like, how do you produce your life as a human? And then you get to Gemini. And Gemini is the thought process. It's the problem solving. It's the curiosity. It's the mind, pure and simple. It's totally amoral. There's no value, judgment of quality. It's just information and thought itself and communication, right? And so when you put those three together, that's the first quadrant. Your identity, your body, your mind. That's it. And that's where we are. And so, I can understand. I myself, we all have a lot of questions. Where's this going? How am I going to get there? What the fuck is going on? We're all newborn babies in this newborn world. And that's the thing, right? Like, Capricorn's the plan. Capricorn's the goal. Capricorn's the achievement. Scorpio is the victory, the mastery. All that's very, very, very far away. We don't even have the tools or the vision to even be delving into those waters. All we have is Jupiter in Cancer, which is this last little bit of this medicine of like trying to give us some way to feel comfortable and feel at home in this new world and in this new everything that we are and that we're in, right? So Jupiter in Cancer's, Cancer's the home, Cancer's the safe place, Cancer's the comfort, the nurturing. And so Jupiter's here to soften the blow, basically, because it's very dramatic and intense to come into this new world and not understand what's going on or what the rules are. It's quite clear it's not going to be the way that it was. It's quite clear that like it's not going to unfold in the same fashion of what we know and have been used to. And in the same vein, you should feel very confident and very true in your knowing that you are no longer the same and that you are ready to do things differently and that you are a new person in a new life. And the thing is like you are a new person in a new life. And if you don't feel that way, that's when you're going to start to feel that really intense sense of anxiety and that really intense feeling of stagnation. Like, if you didn't plan for this, if you didn't listen to all the feelings and all the voices that you have heard and felt, ultimately for your whole life, but that have been growing in volume and frequency and magnitude for the past 8 years, for the past 6 years, for the past 4 years, for the past 2 years, for the past 1 year, for the past 6-8 months. I mean, like, it started as a subtle whisper all the way back, 2008 and even before. But, if you're my age, right? If you're around my age, if you're a millennial, right? If you're Gen Z, 2008 is probably when you started like really being aware of the voices, right? And then in 2012, those warnings and those signals and those signs got a little bit louder. And in 2018, again, the volume turned up. In 2020, like, everybody got the fucking smack in the face. And if you still didn't get it after that, we still had 6 more years. So for those that spent the past 6 years with their head in the sand, trying to figure out how to go backwards and how to hang on to everything that we had known and we're comfortable in and we're used to, this is when this time becomes very, very extreme and very, very difficult. But for the rest of us, it's again, how do I navigate this new reality? That's all. You don't have to know how it ends. You don't have to know what your plan is. You don't even have to know who you're going to be with and navigate this world with in a romantic sense. Partnerships, Libra, that all comes way later. All you have right now, again, you get your birth chart, your identity, right? Which is the spark within you. You have your body, your values, your talents, your skills, and your abilities. And you've got Gemini, which is your mind, your thought process, your ability to adapt and navigate your immediate environment. With that, of course, you got Jupiter in Cancer, so you also have your family. Gemini rules siblings. You got your siblings. Maybe they're not the blood siblings, but you have the close relationships that you've cultivated throughout your life. And that's it, right? Creative purpose, Leo, that's going to start coming in later this year, all right? Virgo, perfecting it, right? Libra, who am I going to do the business with? Who's going to be my mirror? Who's going to be my partners? All this comes later. And it's going to come fast because we live in a world now of air and fire. And things are going to be moving really quickly. And it's not what we're used to. We are back to a very masculine reality, a very masculine energy. And I don't mean this in the context of like the culture wars. I mean this in the context of Hermetic philosophy, right? So it's going to be about your initiative. It's going to be about your ability to communicate your ideas. It's going to be about your courage, your ability to take action, and ultimately like your competitive drive, your intellect. Because for this whole past Neptune in Pisces transit and Pluto in Capricorn transit and Uranus in Taurus transit and all, even while Neptune was in Pisces, we had all the like Scorpio stuff, right? Saturn came through Scorpio. We had Jupiter in Scorpio. The past basically like 20 years has been a big lesson in all the feminine energies of like the waters and the earth and the intuition and the dreams, and like the community connected, soulful, spiritual explorations. And it was a very soft and forgiving place. Even while, again, there's two sides of the mother, right? Definitely like there was some brutal shit that happened, but really overall, with all that Pisces, nothing's clearly, truly well defined. And that means there's a lot of room for flexibility and flow and adjustment and changes. And even if you make a mistake, like it can still sort of be rearranged, because nothing's really nailed down. Now we've re-entered like a very linear timeline where there's no going backwards. There's no do-overs. When, you play for keeps. When you win, you win. When you lose, you lose. And so, we've been through this huge like culmination. And so everybody kind of like got their, everybody's kind of like cashed in their chips from the last round. The winners and losers of the past cycle have been determined, and everybody's been issued either their like debt slip or their paid or their winnings, right? Like, because that's what happens. That's like part of a Saturn thing, and especially like a Saturn Neptune cycle closing at 0 degrees Aries, like we saw earlier this spring. That's a huge culmination. And so like your work, now look around you, to your left, to your right, this is where you are. And this is the outcome of your choices and your interaction with the field, okay? You have a spirit of divine creativity within you. It's your responsibility to develop a relationship with that and then serve that divine sense of creativity within you in the material world, however it calls you to do so. Just be a witness for it, right? I've harped a lot on healing the disconnect and the wound of the identity, forgetting that it arises from the deeper, more complete self. I beat that drum a lot, and it's a drum worth beating because it's 100% true. And what happens when you don't heal the wounds between your identity and your deeper, more complete self is you end up with all the Chiron and Aries stuff, all the wounds of identity. You're confused about who you are. You're confused about all these like fundamental, immutable aspects of yourself. And you believe, right? The identity believes that it has the ultimate creative power to be like, I'm not, my physical vessel. I'm this other thing. Like, and because I told myself that story in my mind, that makes it true and real. Whatever that is, right? Like, the wounds of the identity are when we are telling a story about ourselves that isn't true. And it could be in any kind of context. I'm not trying to pick on, there's a lot of different ways that can show up, like people come into deep conflict with their own soul because the identity is not in service and integrated with the soul. The identity believes itself to be the supreme power. And that confusion is what drives all the like malignant behaviors and ultimately very painful and upsetting and disappointing outcomes, right? So we had this whole big lesson of Pisces about like, hey, there's like a deeper, more complete creative spirit that flows through all the universe that you are a tiny little manifestation of. And if you link up to that and identify as that and allow that to be what's telling your story and where you draw the inspiration for the lines that you write as you are scripting out your whole entire life, that's when things flow smoothly, right? And so with Chiron now going to be closing in Aries, it's getting near towards the end. It's going to be coming into Taurus. So it's the compounding, right? So the Chiron in Pisces was like, yo, you need to heal your like deep spiritual relationship with God. And if you didn't do that, then like, it's going to be really difficult to heal like your identity crisis, which affects your self-confidence and your courage and your ability to like show up to situations as you are and believe. Again, Aries has total absolute confidence in its action on a very instinctual level. It just goes, it just moves. And that's what it takes, right? You can't be hampered by doubts and confusions about who you are. You just have to be who you are and do and go, right? And when you do that and you get to Taurus, then the garden starts to flower, right? Then you get to slow down. Then you get to cultivate beauty and be like, oh yeah, like, oh, if I exercise, I feel good. Like, me plant the daffodils over here and the irises over there, let me cultivate myself, as if I were the Garden of Eden and my body is my temple. That's the Taurus stuff. So if you don't handle the identity issues, then when Chiron then comes into Taurus, now you're severely impoverished. Okay, now it starts to get really serious in like a bodily sense, So like, that's, that's kind of, that's what's up next, so to speak, right? Is Chiron coming into Taurus. Uranus has just left Taurus. Uranus has been trying to help us revolutionize our sense of value and self-worth in order to be able to meet the challenges of this new world that we're being born into, that we have been born into, that we are taking our first steps in now. Because now that Uranus is coming into Gemini, this is going to be revolutionizing our thought process. And just like Uranus coming into Taurus, it's like made people's money situations go crazy. It made like all kinds of like, lots of drama about people's bodies, whether you want to talk about the COVID vaccine or like the overturning of Roe v. Wade, right? Like lots of big, intense conversations about like physical sovereignty. Okay, now we're entering into like the loony bin, basically. It's like where people are gonna start going crazy and snapping and wild shit's gonna happen. Also, crazy inventions, really dramatic, revolutionary inspiration. Okay, Uranus in Gemini the last time was like the early 40s. Okay, a huge push for like rapid industrialization all over the world in order to prepare for war. And what was the problem? Well, for certainly for the Axis, and even for some of the allies, for basically everybody but the United States and Russia, oil was a huge problem. Wasn't an issue for Russia, wasn't an issue for the USA, was a huge issue for everybody else. Okay, and that drove a lot of conflict in the Middle East, particularly for World War I, that would have been Iran, but we're talking World War II, right? Like, it's hard to understate, And so now what's the big rush? What's the big race? Okay. Now we're going through again this rapid technological development. That's the Uranus and Taurus. Is like, we need to build the factories, we need to build the data centers, right? And now it's this, so now who's gonna have the critical output for like the AI weapons, right? And who's gonna be on the cutting edge, right? Because ultimately, Uranus and Gemini is what brought nuclear energy in, right? And nuclear weapons. And so like look again, or for the next like 6 to 8 years, we're gonna see some like really crazy weapons coming out, and some big changes around energy, and big changes around our our thought process, and like the ways that we communicate, right? So let's see. Yeah, so keep that in mind, I suppose, as we take our first steps, right? Is that what all that means for you and for me and for all of us is that everything's going to be different right now. And we are as small children in this new world. Everybody. Literally everybody right now is like a freaking a baby, a small child. Nobody has any idea what's going on. Nobody has any idea like where this is all going. At this point, we're kind of all just along for the ride. And so in order to secure a harmonious and benevolent future for yourself, the medicine of astrology is like, okay, so we need to do the Aries stuff and we need to do the Gemini stuff, right? And ultimately need to do the Taurus stuff too, right? The sun's in Taurus right now. So like, don't forget about Taurus, but the outer planets, right? Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and now Uranus in Taurus, right? Is like, Uranus and Gemini. It's time to move. It's time to be decisive. It's time to move quickly and follow you got to trust your curiosity, and you can't be afraid. One thing that Aries, Taurus, and Gemini have in common, there's no fear, because they're totally innocent. They've never been hurt, right? They've never experienced Scorpio. They've never experienced like the intensity. So it's that ultimately it's that childlike sense of wonder and innocence, as well as the invincibility of youth. So the medicine right now in this crazy world is to adopt the childlike sense of innocence and wonder and the courage to move forward decisively, even though you have no idea what's going on, right? because you remember the lessons of Pisces, and you remember in a deep way how to stay connected to your more complete self, right? Which will guide you and direct you, but it's not going to be like it was, where it was like the front and center of every headline and blasting out of every speaker and surrounded all around us was like the spirituality of the divine inspiration. Like, it's not going to be like that anymore. For now, it's like you got to have internalized all that and found that place within yourself and carry it with you and move from that place with the courage, with the decisiveness, with the initiative, with the curiosity, and with all the lessons of Uranus and Taurus, which is the talents, skills, and abilities that you've cultivated within yourself, and that confidence and inner knowing that you have the tools to navigate a chaotic world and to move quickly and to keep up. And again, we got Jupiter in Cancer for a little bit longer, trying to soften the blow, right? So we have that security blanket for the time being. And you want to take advantage of that and get comfortable in your new life. So don't be trying to hold on to what was. And don't be trying to don't be having like weird identity issues. I'm sorry, like you just can't. Because if you do, that's you're gonna be stuck with that, and that's gonna be your cross to bear, and it's gonna weigh you down to the point of death, right? So let go of the identity issues. Be governed by your deep inner knowing. Embrace your identity, your curiosity. Try to find a way to think it's fun and cool and be stoked about the new world and become comfortable in it, so that when Jupiter comes into Leo later this year, you feel ready and confident and empowered to then allow your creative expression to blossom, because that's what that's going to be all about, right? Once we get this Leo energy coming in, it's going to be really about what are we creating in this new world? For now, just get your bearings and get comfortable, and don't be the deer in the headlights. Don't be stuck standing still, and also, again, be guided. Allow yourself to be guided by that deep inner knowing, because every brick you lay stays where you set it down. And every hand is for keeps. So take it seriously, but have fun with it, and don't take it too seriously, right? Because that will come later. But yeah, also, it's definitely extreme fuck around and find out energy. So just know, if you're gonna fuck around, you're gonna find out, and that could be both good and bad.